Hi, friends. Welcome to the Mobile Bev Pros podcast, a podcast dedicated to providing mobile bar and event professionals with the information they need to succeed. I'm your host, business coach, and founder of the Mobile Bar Academy, Sarah Murphy. In each episode, the Mobile Bev Pros team will bring you industry experts, information, anecdotes, and opinions with the goal of assisting you in building a profitable, sustainable, and successful business that supports you in creating wealth. I'm excited to share with you today's episode, so let's get started.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, guys. Sarah and I have another expansion on the villain era that we are so excited to talk about. And it is quite possibly the biggest part of what creates a villain, and it is their glorious purpose. Today, we will be talking about purpose, how to find it, what it is, where it comes from, why people struggle with it, why we don't know where to find it, all of these topics. Our intention for this podcast is that when you're done, you walk away with more clarity on your unique purpose.
In the villain code, we called this a radical plan. And villains are clear about the change that they want to see in the world. And so one of the things that might have people reluctant or struggling to kind of step into their villain era is this question, well, to what end? I'm not even really sure what I'm trying to accomplish here. I'm not trying to take over the world. I'm just trying to build a business, or I'm just trying to make $100,000 a year so I can leave this dead end job that robs my soul. And that feels pedestrian and like you wouldn't claim that as a purpose in life, right? And so it's this hesitancy to really claim the bigger, the larger purpose that you have in life. And oftentimes we're stuck in dead end jobs, or we're stuck in businesses that don't really serve us, or we're showing up within the world in ways that feel expected of us. In the service industry, we get a lot of people who career change from teaching, from nursing, from other service-based businesses. So it's like a lateral kind of shift. They're like, my value is in how I support and serve others. So how can I do that for myself and still do the thing that people see value in, which is to support and serve others? Nothing wrong with being in the service industry. However, oftentimes when people start their own business to be in service of others, what we see is burnout, because now there's no reins. You can just keep serving others because it's your business, you're the boss. And now not only is your salary dependent on it, but you've got actual real people that are dependent on it. And so we see like boundary issues and stuff. But if you are in service to your purpose, that will never tire you. You will never be tired if you're living your purpose, that bigger why, that thing that you'd crawl through the desert for 40 days and nights in order to do, because there's a greater why out there. And I think what we have discovered, at least through our own journeys, is that people struggle to identify their purpose. They're like, well, I don't even know what that is. Like right now, I just need to make a few bucks. And that's kind of where I am. I'm starting this business. I need it to make money. So like, show me the fastest way to make money, right? Like that's the thing that we hear. And then when we're like, okay, but what is your big why, right? We ask that, like, what's your mission? Oftentimes it's like, I want to support people, be unique. I want to elevate their experience, right? These very generic, they're not life-changing, right? They're not out there to rock even their own world, right? With these mission statements. And so we push a little bit harder and they're like, I don't know. And sometimes we hear from people that are like, very frustrated in life because they don't know what their greater purpose is. They feel like they've spent their entire life just walking through it like a minion with no actual point to it. And they just wish that the whispers of angels or God above would just tell them what their purpose is in life so they can go and live it and feel like they're being of greater value to the world around them. And what we have found is that oftentimes their purpose is right in front of their face, but they're either in resistance to it or they refuse to look at it.
It's also something that we co-create with the universe. Whatever deity you pray to, purpose is a process of co-creation, because it is likely that you were born, the stars aligned just right at your time of birth to support you in your great mission. It's also chosen by you. So this process of co-creation requires your ownership. If you're not willing to own your purpose and claim it as yours, you're going to walk through the world unfulfilled with a mediocre life doing mediocre shit. And even if you achieve great levels of success, you're going to look back and be like, for what? Right. And so many people are looking to their birth charts or to the Enneagram or to their human design to attempt to define and confine their purpose. They're like little investigators of self, right? Isn't it funny that you live with you, but that you still need the stars to tell you who you are? It's just confirming. And so your purpose lives in there too. But your purpose is something that you claim and it's something that you choose. Once you claim it and choose it, the path isn't easy, which is why I think a lot of people don't choose it, right? Because now you have something you're literally in the villain code. You're willing to die for this. You're willing to sacrifice it all to see this come to fruition. And the people start looking around, and when they're in scarcity or they're just trying to pay their bills or they're just trying to, feed their families, they're like, oh, I can't sacrifice anything for that. And so many people's purpose just dies with them and it never sees the light of day. And a lot of this is because you've been robbed of it, right? Society puts you in boxes from the time you're born. You're literally put in a hospital box unless you're born at home, at which point you're born in a house box. You know what I mean? Like we exist in boxes and they have told you your vision. That's what a television is. They've told you your vision. They have indoctrinated you with false forms of media to tell you how to be, who to be. They send you to a public school where you have very specific rules and laws you have to follow, and you are tamed. That's what happens. You are tamed to be a good member of society. But like, raise your hand if you're happy with society right now. Raise your hand if you're proud of where we are. If you look around and you go, wow, my community is thriving and we have the freedoms to choose and create health, and like, where is all that, right? We don't want to conform to that society anymore. We want to be in our purpose, which will break the mold, and it does require a bit of bravery and it will require sacrifice, but also that hungry, vicious feeling you have in your belly that always wants something more. It's your purpose unclaimed.
I also want to mention that you don't necessarily have to be making money from your purpose. That is something that you hear a lot where people are like, do what you love and you never work a day in your life. And that is the best case scenario. I recently went to a museum in Edinburgh, Scotland, and we saw a lot of things. But the thing that stood out the most, my takeaway from that entire day, was this little exhibit that was in the corner of like the fourth floor or something that everybody else just passed right by. And it told the story of a gentleman who worked at like the tariffs office. This is back in the, I don't know, 1800s, 1700s, worked in the tariffs office. That was his day job. But at night, he would take samples of local water and he would look at them under a microscope that he invested in himself. And he would intricately draw these things. And that was like a hobby for him. He would painstakingly, every single detail in color. And then if it had a name, he would write that next to it with a description of how it moved and what it looked like and the colors and all of this. And then if he had never seen it before and couldn't find a reference for it because it's 1700s, he would just, draw it. This is like the most complete collection of the little tiny life forms in water for that time. He wasn't a scientist. He was just cataloging what he saw in the world, but his contribution to the world was amazing. He would do it even if he wasn't being paid, because he wasn't. He wasn't being paid for that. And he did it joyfully. Like, this was a hobby of his. He loved doing it. The contribution to the world was vast. And so purpose sometimes doesn't feel like I'm going to solve world hunger. Purpose looks like leaning into the thing that gives you the most amount of joy and that you would literally, to your point, sacrifice anything to do it. It's like when you're not living your purpose, you're doing these other things. It's like eating empty calories. You're just never filling your cup. It's never doing the job of making you excited about the day to day. And so I want to make sure that people recognize that, like, if your business isn't your purpose, like, there's no shame in that. You can just have a business or just have a job that you do to make money. And like, maybe you get a whole lot of joy out of it. And maybe you don't. Maybe you're just punching a time clock and it enables you to do all of the other things that you want to do in life. There was a TikTok we saw, and I can't remember the creator. You and I both love him. But ultimately, he was talking to an entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur was like, how can I like do more of what I love when my day job pays me. His ultimate takeaway from that is that, does what you love, can you eat it? And the guy was like, no. And he's like, okay, then you got to keep the day job because it enables you to eat, which enables you to do the thing that you love. And so like, sometimes you got to do what you have to do what you want to do. And there's no shame in that. Living your purpose means showing up every day for the thing that lights you up the most. And the other thing here that I want to get across to people is that it is, and I said it earlier, but I'm gonna say it again, it's likely already in front of you, but you can't see it. You and I both experienced this. And my experience with this is probably a little bit more ridiculous, if I'm going to say. I actually went out to Chicago and I spent 2 whole days with a brand strategist out there. Those days were literally just me spewing everything about me, my philosophy on life, what I love to do, the colors that I liked, the people I like to work with, all of the things. It was like she took like probably 20 pages of just notes about Sarah, her takes on things, and nothing came out of it. We didn't come out of that and she's like, okay, here it is. Here's the, like, you didn't see it, but this is what, you know, your brand is all about. And this is how you can serve people. And this is the highest and best use of your time for the market. Literally, it was kind of like her and I both sat there at the end of it and we kind of like, it'll come through eventually. It'll come through. After all of that, you and I have kind of stumbled on the fact that like, oh my God, like our purpose is to put entrepreneurs in their seat of power. Our purpose is to help people reclaim from the various different places and spaces in which they've let other people make decisions or let society tell them how to be, that we can just help them, put them back in their seat of power and then do what they've always wanted to do anyways. They were just waiting for permission to do. But like when that happened, we realized, oh my God, we've been doing that all along. That's what we've been doing, but we just haven't been calling it that. We've been doing that in one shape or form, but then, you know, selling this other thing over here, or this is the program. And like, ultimately what we were doing was helping people feel confident and bringing awareness and clarity to like their biggest impact. But we're going to sell it as this other thing over here, right? And so the chances are that people who are struggling the most with what their purpose is in life already know. They already are doing it in a lot of different ways. They just have been unwilling to claim it. They've been unwilling to own it because it feels like too much of a risk. The society said they could never make money at that, or society said that's an inappropriate use of time. That's a waste of time. Nobody needs that. Nobody wants that. Whatever that looks like, it is probable that you already know, and you've just been in resistance to it.
And I would take your purpose as you've defined it a step further. My mission is to put women in power. And I have a whole philosophy around that, a whole ethos around why that's so important to me. That one statement drives me every day. It changes the way I interact with women. It changes no matter who it is, whether it's the barista at Starbucks, it's a personal friend, my grandmother, the lady walking down the street. Owning that mission, which was terrifying for me. And I was in massive resistance to it for a long time because it required my own self-acceptance at the deepest possible levels that I still work through. And actually, that's what's beautiful, is that women in power get to be human, right? They don't have to be this perfect patriarchal image of success. They get to be women, flawed, stretch marked, crazy hormonal mothers. Like they get to be. That purpose drives me each day. You and I, before we hopped on, were talking about the golden thread that you just referenced here. It was always before me, and I was in so much resistance to it that I couldn't see it. I paid for so much coaching, and I just wanted someone else to see me. Like I would do like the astrological charts and human design and like, who am I? What does it look like? What is my purpose? What is that thing that drives me? And I would pay high-end coaches to reflect back to me that I needed to find it myself. And I was always so frustrated. Like, can't you just tell me? Can't you just tell me what my purpose is? But it was mine to claim. And that's what I want you guys to understand. In all your sovereignty, you have to look at the dragon and say, that's my dragon. Right? And it's going to be ugly. That dragon has the potential to destroy your entire kingdom. Glorious purpose Loki was burdened with. It has the potential to destroy everything. Are you going to choose it? Because it's also the most creative force within you. I will say that people who are ignoring it, there is that longing. There is that feeling of hunger. We support a lot of entrepreneurs who are like, oh, well, my purpose is to elevate the bar experience. Bloggers who are like, my purpose is to have a platform where I can spread herbal remedies, and still they're hungry. Still, there's something in them that's unsatiated at the end of the day. They go to bed and they're like, something was missing. I did all the work. I checked all the boxes and something was missing. And that hunger is an indication. We don't want to suppress it because it's trying to lead you to the dragon so that you can own it and claim it and start living your purpose. I mean, that's what we want, right? Like we want to be living our values. We want to be an amplifier for our life's intention. And just going about making a buck to feed your family, first of all, that's a beautiful mission in life. Feed your family. But that extra hunger at the end of the day, it has keys for you. And everyone won't heed this call because of the level of bravery it takes, the level of sacrifice required. But there are some of you who are listening. When I say that, you feel that hunger and you're like, oh my God, she sees me. And we're calling you to start looking deeper at what is your life's intention? Are you in alignment with it?
The other thing I'd add here is that it's possible that your purpose has stepping stones and that you're going to heed the call to the level 1 and you're going to be like, yes, I feel so empowered. I'm finally doing the thing that lights me up. And then there's going to be like a little guiding star that illuminates that next level. And you're like, oh God, that's even more scary, but that also feels aligned. And so you can baby step your way there. Using myself as an example, it was audacious as fuck for me to start wearing a cheesy ass crown as a part of my personal brand. It made no sense if I'm thinking about it within the Mobile Bev Pros context, because like mobile bars, what does that have to do with crowns? And it felt right. It felt like purposefully audacious. And it wasn't like a marketing stunt. It was symbolic of what it was that I wanted my clients to really embody from our time together. I want you, even though it feels silly, to have this token of a crown so that when you are being asked to CEO in your life and in your business, you can put it on your head and sit up a little bit straighter and remember the power that you have. And then I just like kind of leaned into it and talked about seed of power. I was thinking about it the other day that when I first started working with my very first coach, who was not you, John, it was the first investment I ever made in coaching, which is a hilarious story in and of itself. I was so lit up about this concept of seed of power in one of our coaching sessions. The only thing she had to offer me was like, sounds like you really want to get this out into the world. Why don't you create a YouTube video on this and like put it up on YouTube? At the time I didn't have a YouTube. I wasn't even really recording very much for like high quality for MVP at the time. I was just getting into like MVP was making like no money. It was being supplemented by Bar Magnolia. And I was like, okay. And so I like did my hair, I did my makeup, I like recorded this like monologue on the seed of power and I put it out in the world. It's probably still out there, but like did nothing else with it, right? So if I look back, that was my golden thread the whole time. I was just leaving myself breadcrumbs about what it is ultimately that lit me up inside and potentially other people could see it. But it wasn't until like you and I had this aha moment where like, what are we doing? We're like pussyfooting around entrepreneurship coaching in all of these other ways. And the golden thread here is empowering women and entrepreneurs to be big, to be bold, to be too loud, to shirk society's requirements around what it looks like to be successful. A lot of times I will do something that's contrary to what I teach. And you pointed out to me the other day with branding. And I'm like, your branding needs to be consistent. And then you look at my Instagram and my website and like no consistency whatsoever. And that's genius for me. I'm assuming my face is what makes you realize that you're in the right place. But like none of these are not me. Those funny, fun, pretty colors on Instagram are me. These very professional and subdued luxury colors over here are me. They're all me. My face is what you need to understand is the common thread. And that's because I have leaned into my genius over the past few years in a way that like standard rules don't need to apply to me. They don't need to apply to me because I'm not having to check all of the basic boxes to say, okay, I'm doing all of these things correctly. Therefore, people will work with me. People work with me even though my branding is all over the place, right? That's where you lean into genius. That's when you lean into purpose. It's like, I am the force. And people are going to be drawn to that. And you even mentioned that in a certain way in today's email, is that when a woman stands in her power, I would say even when a man stands in their power from a aligned, I would say from a, I don't want to, because the patriarchy is a little bit different here, in that oftentimes when men stand in their power, they're doing so on the backs of others. They're doing so in a way that's usurping the power, the decision making, or the comfort of others. When we talk about standing in one's power, it's in a feminine way, it's in a matriarchal way, in that I am powerful and you can be powerful too. And so when you as a woman stand in your power, you inherently give others permission to also be in their power. And so when I'm teaching people how to do certain things, they're not yet in their power, so they're following the rule books. Nothing wrong with that. It's a stepping stone. But when you're in your power, you get to burn the rule book. You just get to say, these are my rules. I'm changing the rules in my space. And that's how it is over here. And that's okay. You can absolutely burn the rule book when you stand in your power. That's what we want for all of you. We want all of you to burn the rule book.
And identify your own holy Bible. Identify your own 10 commandments, your own Quran, your own Torah. Identify your own laws. Because when you're living in accordance with the laws of what society says, and they don't resonate with your own values, you'll find yourself lost. And we do find people who haven't established their own values. They have no idea what their values are. I mean, even some of the most advanced entrepreneurs I've ever worked with, I get them in to do mission, vision, value work for their brand and their ideal client so that their messaging can be nailed in. And they're like, you know what I mean? They have no idea. And so once you've established your own values, you're living in accordance with your own rules, your own laws, then you're in integrity. Your foundation is so clean that people are drawn to you. They're like, what is so magnetic, so sexy about this person? And it's not that I'm a good person by society standards, it's that I'm a good person by my standards. We want people to have the clarity and the confidence that comes with claiming your personal life's intention, your personal purpose. And they lack that when they haven't claimed or identified their purpose, whether it's their beginner purpose or it's their big purpose and they're like advanced entrepreneurs, whatever it is. If they haven't started the journey of claiming it, they lack clarity. And everything they do comes up empty and it feels unfulfilled. So, like, yeah, you paid your bills this month, but something's missing. Or you get them in a seat where, like, the entrepreneurship, there's a million possibilities. Your seat of power, you can create whatever you want. That's terrifying for people. I think a couple of podcast episodes ago, you mentioned the kids in the classroom where they were like, you can just free play, do whatever you want. And like one kid like curled up in the corner and slept because like they had no idea how to operate with that much freedom. When you're an entrepreneur, you have that much freedom. That's why it's ever more important for you to create the clarity through defining your purpose. And so it is a co-creative process. You were likely born with it to be supported in your purpose, but it's also something you choose and you claim. But if you've never done the work to find it and you're like, I lack clarity, I have no idea where I want to go from here, it's because you haven't decided. I always think that your life's intention is like this beautiful intersection between the way you've always been and the thing that you're in most resistance to. For me, the resistance was around strategy and structure. I absolutely hated strategy and structure to the extent that I was like, business is only going to be intuitive. And that's because I wasn't in alignment with my vision, with my values, with my greater purpose. But once I landed on my purpose, I saw strategy and structure as a tool to fuel how I'm going to get there. And so I was willing to sacrifice that resistance to strategy and structure because my greater why called me to greater levels. It was absolutely going to require strategy and it was absolutely going to require discipline and structure. And that's when I was like, oh, I've always been in resistance to these things, not because they're bad, but because I wasn't aligned in my purpose. I'd had no reason to give strategy and structure, to be a disciplined person. And once I defined my big why, all of a sudden I had reason.
You mentioned values, and we're actually going to talk about that when we talk about radical integrity. But a few episodes back, we talked about if you are unsure, and this was business related, if you're unsure about your values, here's a little exercise as to how to go about deciphering what the values are that already exist. Similarly, I have a little exercise for people that are trying to figure out what their purpose is or what it is that lights them up that they really want to lean into and spend all of their time doing. And that is to move through the world. Before we hopped on, I told you that I used to do this little exercise when I was hiring in the restaurant industry, especially front of the house people. I would have what I called a stage shift where they would come in and they would observe and like pitch in if they felt like they could be of help. And I would just watch them to see where in the restaurant they would park themselves. Most of the time, people would be drawn toward a specific place. So, was it the host stand? Were they helping seat people? Were they behind the bar, helping make drinks or helping fill waters and sodas? Were they on the floor and just working the tables, saying hi, seeing how people liked their meal, etc.? But that told me a lot about where their zone of comfort was just by being. And we all have a zone of comfort. If we're moving through the world of our own accord, we're going to find certain places and spaces where we're drawn to spend more time. We're drawn to spend more energy. And I don't mean scrolling on TikTok. I'm talking like actually being and existing in the real world, where if you had an entire day to do whatever you wanted, who would you support? What would you do with your time? What would you create? And I think maybe that's the best indicator of purpose, is that as a human, one of the things that we have that no other species really has the ability is intentionally create a thing, intentionally alter the world in a way that lights you up and makes you happy. What are you creating? It could be art, it could be music, it could be helping at a food bank, it could be writing, it could be doing research, it could be literally anything. But there's likely something that when given the opportunity and the space to create, that you want to do more than anything else.
The other thing is hang out with people who give you permission to embody your life's purpose, your life's intention. Because if you grew up in a family where your life's purpose was radical and you were shamed for it, like myself, I grew up Pentecostal here in the South. The idea of women being in power or women having rights at all is just like the most radical idea on the planet to my family. The women in my family bow to weak men. They have been committed to abusers their whole life. They can't make their own money. They don't provide for themselves. They don't have power. They don't have a voice. They aren't valued. And they give. And they're always sick and they're always suppressed and they're never happy because they just serve their husband, who is usually an abusive or addicted man. And so I had to start hanging out with people who believed, at least in part, that it was possible for women to be in power. And for the last 500, potentially thousands of years, women have been suppressed. And so right now, it's so radical to believe that women can be in power. And so I get to look at my life and say, am I hanging out with people who give me permission to see women in power, who don't say, that's crazy, Dawn, you're not a very good Christian, when I say things that are radical and outside of how we were raised? And actually, I don't hang out with my family very much because they contribute in the opposite way. I don't have time to hear that I'm crazy. And I don't have time to be constantly battling people to make them believe in my life's intention. I can see it. And it doesn't matter if the rest of the world can't see it. But if I can find people who are willing to give me permission to show up in my fullness, if I can be in a safe space to pursue my mission, then I'm in the right room. So find people who give you permission to go after that big why.
And to be the biggest version of yourself. Because being more of ourselves is what's going to potentially erode away the ice that you have packed around your purpose. You're like, I can't see it. It's like the Zelda thing is coming to my head where you have to like melt the ice cap in order to see what's inside it. And like, I think so many of us have tried to put it behind ice because we've been told like, you can't do it. That's not right. It's not going to pay the bills. like, what a waste of time. We've got all these stories and these narratives that are around what potentially could be our greatest life's purpose. And it doesn't have to be, again, like some huge, massive shift in reality, although maybe it is, and like delicious. If that's you and you're out there and like, no, 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 I'm going to change the world, like you're in the right place. Like we're all here for world changers. But changing your world has a butterfly effect on the greater world. And so you can start there. You can start by just looking at what lights you up and then do more of that. And then again, like that stepping stool, you might then see, actually, it's just like me with my like crown. It started with just like a very little thing. And what it did was it opened up, oh, it's okay for me to have this silly little crown, and it symbolically means another thing, and like lean in harder and harder. And then now here we are, crowns in chaos, right? And we're speaking directly to the people who have been drawn to the medicine that we have. And a matter of fact, reflect back to us how life-changing these words are for them. And like, that's what we want. We want more of that. We want to work more with the people who listen to us and see greater and bigger versions of themselves through our words. If that's you, if you're hearing this and hearing permission and hearing clarity, then we have achieved our goals.
And if you're not hearing clarity, we have an upcoming challenge for you, a 63-day challenge where we are going to help you kickstart your own personal villain era. We're going to help you dive deep into yourself and start to get to know your own fears and limitations, how you define personal power, what it looks like for you to be and live in your power, to fully embody yourself, your most authentic, fully expressed, most successful in whatever area, however you define success, version of yourself. And that challenge does not have a start date yet. It will be starting soon. As soon as that link's available, I will pop it into the show notes. But for now, just keep an eye on your inbox because that's going to be launching soon. It's only $63 to join. We are going to be walking people through a very intimate container where they get to dive deeper into themselves, get to know themselves, so they can start unpacking all the bullshit that keeps them from defining their purpose and living in their most glorious life. And we're going to help them start defining what that even looks like. And so we're going to help you define your purpose and identify your purpose just through the process of helping you eliminate all the shit that's not you and eliminate all the stories that hold you back. We had a call today with a time bending coaching client who wants to change several aspects of her life, how she eats, how she sleeps, how she moves her body. And one thing I picked up on in listening to her language was that she used the word try a lot. And she kept saying, yeah, I'll try out eating this way, and I'll try moving my body this way, and I'll try sleeping like this or whatever. The other thing that she was doing was making things more complex than they needed to be. Like she was like, I need to meal prep if I'm going to eat this way, and I need to plan, and I need to, and I just reflected back to her that she was putting obstacles in her own way before she ever even got started. And that she continued to use the word try when I wanted her to use the word do. I'm going to do this. It's a commitment. And that's the difference between the villain and the good guy. The good girl is like, oh, I'm going to try. I hope one day this changes. And the villain is like, fuck that. I'm committed. I'm going to make change. And that's what we want. And so in the 63-day challenge, we're not going to help you just hope. We're not going to help you try. We are going to get commitments from you. We're going to help you hold yourself accountable, and we're going to help you do the damn thing so that in 63 days, you are a radically different person. Actually, you're probably just more of yourself. That's what we really want, which is going to feel radically different because up until now, you've probably been playing this role of not yourself, trying to please the people around you, mitigate risk in conversations, be nice so that people will buy your product or service. And we're going to help you chip away at all that bullshit so that you can be the most potent and concentrated and precise version of who you are, who you came to be on this planet.
And I myself am very excited for it. There is structure involved in this. It is going to ask of you to look at you, yourself, the vessel that is the villain. We're going to have journal prompts that will help you look introspectively on the areas in which you've been lying to yourself, that you've been lying to the world, and then slowly start to change the way that our brains think about ourselves and the work that we do in the world. What came up when you were talking was the brand Liquid Death. Liquid Death is a water company, and they sell canned water. I think they also sell like canned tea and like lemonade and stuff. And they're one of my favorites because they literally sell something that everybody else sells, and they do it at a premium. If you want to look at the villain archetype, like they literally auctioned off a coffin for shits and giggles, which I just fucking love. But everything about them is villainous. I don't know that they would self-describe themselves that way, but they had come out with a canned Arnold Palmer, and they got sued by the Arnold Palmer Foundation or some shit, because Arnold Palmer was a dude and he was a golfer and he used to like iced tea and lemonade half and half. And so they named it the Arnold Palmer. And then Liquid Death got sued. And so you know what Liquid Death did? They just renamed the product Dead Billionaire. That's it. Dead villain. Talk about savage. Absolutely savage. Living their best villain life with zero fucks. And like, that's what we want for our peoples, is to have a little bit of fun with their life. Cause that, like, let's be a little silly, you know, and to embrace the fact that nice girls finish last. There's a reason that that saying exists. And so we're going to put our little nice girl in a box for 63 days. And we're going to work on ourselves in a big, bold way. We're going to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that we're doing the things that we said are important to us. We're going to keep our word to ourselves and stop self-sabotaging in large and small ways. We're going to do the work that actually moves the ball forward, committing actual time to doing that work instead of saying, oh, maybe tomorrow, ran out of time today, didn't have the time to do that thing I said I was going to do. No, you're going to do it for 63 days.
One of my favorite parts of the show Agatha All Along, they're attempting to finish The Witch's Road. And up until this point, they have been through some insane shit. It's such a good show. 10 out of 10 recommend, especially for women and being empowered and being fully self-expressed. And as she's walking away, she turns around and she said, last one there is a nice person. I saw today a reel by a creator who I absolutely love, and she was breaking down the etymology of the word nice, and she takes it all the way back to like Latin and early Germanic, and it means stupid. Listen, we would love to see you for the 63-day challenge if you're up for it and if you're going to commit, because what we're not going to do is have people enter the 63-day challenge and try. I'm going to try and show up for myself. If you would like to try, I recommend a different program. If you would like to do, we will see you inside the Villain Era when it launches. Thank you so much, Sarah, for hanging out with me today. This has been an awesome episode, and we'll talk to you guys on the next one.
And that wraps up today's episode. I hope it was valuable. I would love to hear from you what you thought. You can drop me a line at hello@mobilebevpros.com or find me on Instagram at mobilebevpros. If you're looking for more valuable mobile bar related content, we have a website full of it. You can find us at www.mobilebevpros.com. And I'd love to see you in our Facebook community, also by the name of, you guessed it, Mobile Bev Pros. Thank you for joining me today, and until next time, cheers.